let me doing a mic check and a video check, guys. We are gonna
Guys.
welcome two prolific writers from Image, Chris Condon and Julio Anta. That Texas Blood and Home. They both came out in trade paperback. They're doing a special signing at the store. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm gonna ask some questions myself. Let me see who's on. I'm gonna read some of the questions.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for anybody who's tuning in.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I see you. Go to Frito. Go to Frito's first. Oh, he says Happy Thanksgiving Eve. Jose.
Yeah,
Happy
happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving Eve.
Locksmith. Okay. Jose's on. Darius Crosby. What's going on? We just signed your books, Darius.
It's true.
Yep.
I signed them.
He signed them. He signed the whole batch.
Yeah, we both got them.
Guys, if you guys have any questions, ask away. It's the day before Thanksgiving.
I know.
I know.
These guys never sleep. I see a lot of hello. I see Darius Crosby, Jose, go to Frito. Let's see who else is on. So we were talking about your book, that Texas Blood, and how I thought it when I was reading it, it felt like I was reading a like a Hitchcock novel or a screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of suspense.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of hidden background, like darkness within the town and
Mhm.
stuff. So how did that come about?
Well, I mean, essentially the idea for doing everything in this one county was I just had a whole lot of different ideas that were set in Texas, and then once we got the comic approved, the idea just to kind of put all these stories into one and to have that become a factor was, I don't know, it really opened up the story possibilities for me. But also, I mean, in terms of the feeling like a Hitchcock thing, I mean, I'm just a great lover of classic film, for one thing. I mean, I love great suspense novels, thrillers. Jim Thompson. If you're talking about film, the Coen Brothers, Hitchcock.
Coen Brothers, love them.
So those are big influences. And then obviously just, comics in general are a great love of mine. I always mention, but I feel like I have to because he's always on my mind, but Darwin Cook is a big influence on me.
Parker books.
Yeah.
The Parker books. I always open up the first volume, the first Parker, and look at the very first page. I think it's one of the best first pages in all of comics.
Wow.
It's
He's walking down the bridge.
Yeah, it's Parker walking down the George Washington Bridge, and I don't know. It's done so well and such a great adaptation from the novel. Which I mean, I can't wait for the second volume of that Parker Martini edition.
Yeah,
I got the first one.
They're huge. You've seen those, right, Hank?
No, I'm not familiar with that one. I'm familiar with Darwin Cook.
Yeah,
Didn't he pass?
he did.
He did, unfortunately. Yeah,
Florida, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm also a big fan of his work for DC. New Frontier was big.
That's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big one for me.
I love his nostalgic style.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That 40s, right?
Mhm. The smiles, his
Yeah.
classic smiles.
Yeah.
So clean, very clean, simple, and yet it's like larger than life.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got like a weird amalgamation of like Jack Kirby and Dick Spring. It's a very strange sort of mid-century look. And I mean, I always loved that it was, one step removed from like animation almost. It was very smooth, very streamlined.
Yeah.
But in terms of his writing, though, I mean, I always thought his scripts were fantastic. He did that Spirit series at DC for a little bit.
Right.
I think they did. I don't even know how many issues they did. Was it 20 they did with him? And that was a really fun series.
Jose Pantoja says he loves your art. Well,
Well, Jacob's art, but yes.
Yeah, Jacob is the artist.
Yes.
Jacob Phillips is the artist. Is he related to
He is the son of Sean Phillips, yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, wow. And can you retell that story or share the story how you guys met and how the book came about?
Well, basically, I was trying to get a movie made, and I was reading Kill or Be Killed at the time, which Ed Brubaker wrote and Sean Phillips drew, and I had come across the back issues. They have, or the back matter. They had these essays about films, and there was always an illustration accompanying them, and this series had Jacob Phillips doing the art for them. And I really liked Jacob's art, and I thought it would be really, it would translate really well for concept art because it's very painterly. And so I looked him up. I had no way to get in touch with him. I looked him up on DeviantArt and sent him a message. And luckily, he responded. And I basically said, I can't really pay you much money, but if you're willing to, read the script, if you like the script enough, maybe you'll want to do it. And he liked the script enough. And what that script was the first issue of That Texas Blood.
Oh,
really,
wow.
it was a short film at the time, but it became the very first issue. Very similar. I don't think it really changed much at all. The major thing that changed was Joe Bob was 50 and he became 70.
Oh, okay.
So I aged him up a little bit, but that was all that happened.
That makes a big difference that he's 70, about to retire.
Yeah, it got a lot better when he became 70. There was just a whole lot more mileage to him as a character, and we could go back to 1981 like we did in the new arc, the second arc, and he's not a baby. So so we were able to have him be a fully fleshed out human being in 1981. And sort of build out his character a little bit more and have a little bit more that could haunt him, as he grows old and weary.
For me
But
as a
still
reader,
strong.
I really like that he's that old, because I've I don't know, I rarely have seen a sheriff that old in a comic or anything like that, so it felt really unique.
Yeah.
What drew me to the book was the covers.
Yeah.
The covers, each cover is like a museum piece.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me of Thomas Blackshear, or incredible colors, the composition, sort of like Norman Rockwell a little bit.
Well, it's funny you say Norman Rockwell because this one is based off of a Norman Rockwell painting.
Yeah.
So the second arc.
Now that you mention, I see it.
Yeah, the second arc, all the covers are based off of famous paintings.
Yeah.
So the issue 7 is a Norman Rockwell. This issue 8 is a I can't remember the name, but it's a classic artist. But yeah, they're all based off of classic artists. Issue 10 is a famous Saturday Evening Post cover.
Right. Yeah.
So and I love that we did that we're doing things like that, because that's the kind of stuff that I would be interested in, and Jacob is interested. I think that's why we get along so well.
Yeah.
Not only in our creative collaboration, but also just as friends.
Yeah. Right.
Which I'm lucky to be able to work with somebody that I get along with.
Well, yeah, that's so important.
and this guy's pretty cool too.
Is he cool?
Yeah, if someone tunes in right now, they might think I'm Jacob.
That's true.
Are you talking about me? I'm like, yes.
I have a question from Darius Crosby. He said, "Gentlemen, it is great to have you here. How did you discover your love, enjoyment of writing stories?"
Okay, you want to hand?
Yeah, I'll go.
I've been talking.
Yeah. For me, I grew up reading comics. It started with manga and anime. One day, a friend of mine told me about. I'm from Miami originally. One time, a friend told me about a anime store in Miami when I was really young, and when I went in, they had an American direct market comic section where they had single issues. So that was really my first introduction to DC, Marvel single issue comics. Before that, I just read comics at the drugstore. The Archie comics run of Sonic the Hedgehog was really big for me. But then with telling stories, for me it was Home was the story that the story idea that made me want to tell stories, and really made me get invested in learning about story and how to construct story and what the different kinds of structure there was for it. So really it was all in service of writing this book, this idea that I had.
Also, I think the story needed to be told.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I definitely felt like I had to tell it, whether or not anybody would follow me along and, read it was a different story. But I felt like I needed to tell it because there was all this like anger brewing inside of me over what I was seeing happen. For those of you who don't know, Home is a book about a young boy who is separated from his mother at the U.S.-Mexico border, just as superhuman abilities begin to manifest inside of him. So if you've read it, or like if you hear that pitch, I think it's pretty obvious that it was inspired by and in reaction to the zero tolerance policy at the border and family separation. So for me, as the son of a Cuban exile who came to this country as a 5-year-old, and my grandparents on my mother's side were undocumented from Colombia, I have all of these stories in my background of all these different immigrant stories, because the Cuban and the Colombian experience in America is so different, that when I started seeing what was happening in family separation, it just it was really a gut punch to me. Not just because I'm the kid of immigrants, but because I was also a father for the first time.
Right.
My son was 3 at the time, and I was seeing, him in the eyes of these kids. I was seeing my father as a 5-year-old in the eyes of these kids. And it just felt like a new low in terms of how, our government was treating immigrants. So when I had the idea for this, I felt like I had to tell it, because there was nothing like this in comics,
Yeah. Never.
Yeah.
And it was very political too. It's very raw.
Yeah, one of the things I like to say about this book is not that it's a political book, but it's a family drama about a family that is being affected by politics. So like it's not a book about a certain president or a certain party. It's a book about how these cruel policies affect this family. Yeah
Definitely.
What about you, Chris?
I've always liked telling stories. The first time I remember writing something, though, there was a workshop at my public library. I grew up in a small town, and they had us write a book and illustrate a book, and mine was called The Great Fishing Adventure. And I never had fished before in my life. I had no interest in fishing. So that just goes to show you that I was a creative young kid.
Yeah.
It also had to deal with they were sucked in a book. These two brothers were sucked into a book about fishing, and that was really, I think, what my interest was in it.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a cool little thing where they you wrote this book, you drew this book, and then they bound it and put it together, and then they put it in the library.
That's cool.
That was what started it, I guess. But I didn't really think about doing it as a profession or having anybody even read my stuff until high school, even when a teacher we get picture prompts in English class, and I wrote this thing, and the teacher just, she took me aside and she was like, "Have you ever thought about taking writer's workshop?"
Oh.
And I had never really thought about doing it. I had always been interested in writing, had always kind of done it on my own, but never really thought about it in terms of, a class, first of all, some sort of structured form. And so that really got me kind of on the trajectory, I think, to where I am today.
See, I just pictured you as like a little kid watching TCM, falling in love with movies.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely watched a lot of old movies growing up. But
And you come from a film background.
Yeah, I mean, I worked in film in a very
Hollywood guy.
In a very low level capacity. I worked in a production company. I worked for Joe Dante, who made Gremlins.
Nice.
And I was really lucky to work with him, and I'm a great fan of his work. One of my favorite movies is Gremlins, but also The Howling and all these great movies, The Burbs, Matinee. So I was really lucky to be able to work with him for almost 4 years. Yeah, but I always tried to get my own stuff made, and it's hard to get investment for to make a film. And I kept trying and trying and trying, and I don't know why I never tried to do a comic before, because I loved the process. I love comic books in general. I don't know why I didn't think of doing it earlier. I mean, I had always drawn my own comics and stuff.
Oh, you drew your
Yeah, I did. I used to draw my own comics, but I sort of stopped doing it, and then just put it on the back burner, and then all of a sudden, guess what works out is the first love.
Yeah.
It comes back to be a.
Do you see a lot of similarities between the comics versus film?
I mean,
industry-wise.
Yeah, I mean, industry, no.
No.
In terms of the actual mediums, I would say they're very similar. I would say that comics is the perfect in between for prose and for film and TV. It's this in between where you're getting dialogue, but it's written.
Right.
And I believe strongly that comics is a much more intimate medium.
Right.
Than film and TV ever could be, because it's a one-to-one relationship between the reader and the writer and artist.
The reader controls the pace too.
Yeah, that too. So it's a very interesting medium. But in terms of the industries, I'd say that, I mean, at least in my, our book came out during the pandemic, so I'm not really that familiar with the actual, the ins and outs of the industry, and like other people might be, but.
Maybe like the hurry up and wait aspects are similar in Hollywood and in comics.
Yeah, I mean, there's some similarities in terms of there's a lot of trying to get into your high concept ideas out there, because that they'll sell and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
I would say that maybe the pressures are less in comics.
Yeah, for sure. The investment in the books or in the movies and books are totally different.
There's no AD.
Yeah, there's nobody telling me time.
So I was a film student, so I couldn't
Oh,
make
nice.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't make it in the film industry, so I had to open up a comic shop.
Yeah.
Closest
So, I
thing
mean,
to it.
yeah.
Closest
Yeah.
thing to it, And the same question.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. I got. You come from a music background.
Yeah, I mean, I came up in the punk and hardcore scene in South Florida,
Right.
playing drums in bands.
Yeah.
And then I started my own label,
Right.
where we were, mostly working with my friends' bands, doing like vinyl and cassette tapes and stuff. So I feel like that's, I think one of the things that has made, this is my first book, but made it at least moderately successful is that, like that DIY upbringing that I had with music, where it's about like doing what you need to do with not a lot, and just like hustling to get the word out, like doing things like this, like you and I met because Home Number One came out during the pandemic.
Yeah.
No signings, nothing going on, and
Right.
I just messaged you and I was
Yeah.
like, hey, I want to, like, can I come in and just sign whatever copies you order?
Yeah.
And that was almost a year ago now.
I know.
Yeah.
That's
So I think that's that's one of those things that I got from music that I think has been like the thing that translates the most.
Sure. Also have,
The hustle.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
From Jose Pantoja. Hey Terry, what's going on? So she said you guys are multi-talented. And yes, Terry, we'll get your signed copies. Okay, we have two questions, two part. First question is how long you guys been doing this? And then I have a follow-up question.
Oh, about 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
And the second question follow-up is how did you get into comics and coming up with your ideas for your stories?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of talked about that before, but almost all of my stories start with something that, I guess that I'm angry about. Something that's real. Something. My books are not nonfiction; they're all fictional. But I was telling Hank this before we went live. Everything in the series Home is real, with the exception of the superpowers. So every instance, every time that you see something happen to a character, like a baby ripped away from its mother when she's breastfeeding in a Border Patrol detention center, children being separated from their families. Like that's all based off of real life research. And yeah, so most of my stories just come from something that I've read, something that has impacted me somehow, and then, finding a way to, fictionalize it in a way that is at least readable, and not too depressing at least.
I mean, I kind of got into how I got into comics, I guess, but I've always been interested in comics. I've always been interested in telling stories through comics, and I've always just kind of went from medium to medium. I would write, stories, whether they were in comic form or in, for a movie or for just, just a short story. I was always writing. But in terms of how I come up with stories, I wish I knew.
So you replicate it?
I don't know. I'm working on our next arc right now, and I just sort of, I had an idea that it would take place during a blizzard, and there would be some, something that happens during the blizzard, and how do you deal with the problem during a blizzard? Especially in an area that doesn't normally get blizzards. So,
That's right. Cactus, right? Cactus.
yeah. So and they were just hit with a big blizzard, this year. So it's very timely in a way, but. Yeah, I don't know. I sort of start with a kernel of an idea, and then just characters really fill it out, and then from there, that's really where the stories come from, I guess. Characters.
Yeah, I really like what I don't know, you might be familiar with this also. I don't know if you've ever heard David Lynch talk about where his ideas come from. He has
he goes fishing, doesn't he?
Yes, that's his philosophy, that the ideas are out there and it's just up to him to go fishing for them and just get himself in the headspace where he can catch the ideas. Which I like a lot, and I've kind of tried to take that philosophy with some of my ideas, where I just try to get into really deep thoughts to try to figure out what the next step is. Because I mean, for me, I'm a big outliner, and that's where I figure everything out. In the outlining stage, you don't.
I should.
Yeah.
Don't.
Well, I mean, what I was just saying is that that's where I figure it out. So you don't outline. So when are you figuring it out on page?
Yeah, because for me, since it's because I break down each page with each panel and angles and all that. So I mean, and coming from doing film stuff, I mean, even if my stuff never went anywhere, you're at least still breaking that. You have to break down shots, and they have to move smoothly from shot to shot, scene to scene. And so I might have an idea for a scene. So, I mean, I guess in that way, that outline exists in my mind, that I know, okay, I want this scene, then this scene, then this scene, then this scene. But in terms of the actual breakdown of what happens in the scene is dictated by how I am writing. Okay, this, I kind of think this should be the page, and then I'll break it down, and I'm like, it's not fitting. Okay, let me see if I can read. And then so that's kind of how I figure it out. Is I'm just writing panel by panel. And just honestly, I just reread it a lot to see if it flows for me.
Got it.
Because I guess I figure that's why if it works for people, it works for people because it works for me as a reader.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
how much direction do you give to the artist? Do you give a very detailed notes, or do you give him more freedom?
But you're giving angles, right?
I give very descriptive. I break everything down as much as I can, but I also always leave in the caveat of change whatever you need to. I know it's, I write it in black and white. You have to make it, full color, bring it to life. So I do, I mean, and that, I think that the way that I'm descriptive, I think probably helps somebody like Jake, because he's also very, I mean, obviously he's a visual mind, but, we both have this sort of very, we have the cinematic sort of lens in our brains that I think that the fact that I'm describing things the way that I'm describing them just clicks, so that it helps him not have to think about a scene for too long, because all of a sudden he knows, okay, I know kind of how I need to tell this, how to get this done, and how to do it well. Which, by the way, I mean, I have never sent anything to him telling him that he needs to redo something or that it didn't work or whatever. It's always worked. Yeah, so I mean, everything he's done has been fantastic. So
yeah, I mean, no, they look. I mean, I love looking at your issues and like looking at Jacob's heart. But for me, with the exception of, so I tend to write in my scripts like, this is a large panel. Maybe this idea is like these 3 panels should go on one tier. But with the exception of that, and like maybe saying like, oh, this is an insert shot, this is a close up. That's really or like an over the shoulder. Sometimes I'll say that's really the extent of the angle, like the camera angles that I'm dictating. But also, my relationship with artists is always kind of that same caveat, which is like, if you think that we need an extra panel or we have too many panels, or I like to leave storytelling power for the artist also. So I think especially with comics, that's what makes the most sense, to make sure to leave room for them to make their own decisions.
So you definitely give them a lot of freedom.
Yeah, for sure.
I have another question. I think this is a question for Chris. Jose wants to know, how many issues are in the works?
How many issues are in the works? Oh yeah, sorry. There are at least 30 issues of the series as a whole. What I'm working on right now is issue 14 through possibly 21. I haven't decided if it's a 6-issue series or a 8-issue series.
The cover.
There's a lot going on. I want to keep the pace.
Well, I said gold
that we have,
if we were doing the inside, but up to you.
So that's
Gold
really
here?
what's going to dictate the length of the next arc, is going to be whether it can still breathe the way that our stories usually do. Because I think that's one of the things that makes us unique.
Right.
One of the things that people like about our book is that we have a pacing that other books might not have.
Whatever you think, I can do it here.
Yeah, try that. Like,
Do you want me to finish this one?
Yeah.
Because I started it already.
sorry. I'm sorry.
No.
You want me to finish
Yeah,
this one
yeah,
here, and the
yeah.
rest I'll do up there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love the design of this book.
Yeah, the barbed wire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even just the trade in general. I love this. I don't. If you guys haven't seen it out there, there's this great
Yeah, that's something to talk about.
teaching
It's an educator guide.
Yeah, there's an educator guide in the back.
Oh, I didn't see that.
And
Wow.
not only is it just a great concept, but it's also just designed incredibly well. It looks sort of like those X-Men data sheets.
Yeah. So yeah.
Except it's actually helpful.
Yeah. Oh no.
I'm joking. It's fiction. It's fiction versus,
So yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. So the logo was designed by Todd, who's a really great comic book logo designer. But everything inside of the trade was designed by Ryan Brewer, who is an image production artist. So he worked for Image, and he did all of the educator guide. So the educator guide was created by a nonprofit group called Reimagining Migration. And they created this 24-page educator guide that kind of goes into like the context of family separation, why, and by the way, the educator guide is written for teachers to then teach their middle school and high school age students about immigration into the US, worldwide immigration. But it also has like a lot of discussion questions and really just like dives into a lot of like the laws and the policies that I don't have time to get into in the book without it just being like a textbook. But yeah, they did an incredible job on it. Ryan made it look beautiful. And he did take a lot of inspiration from Tom Mueller, who did the X-Men designs. That's one of the conversations we had when we started working on it. Yeah.
Which those are incredibly well designed pages in those X-Men books. I was joking.
Don't send us letters.
Don't show Hickman this video.
Yeah,
right.
please. I love him.
Didn't he also go to Substack?
Yep, he's at Substack
Oh.
also. Yeah.
Can we talk about a little bit of that? It's such an interesting subject that nobody really talks about.
Yeah, we were
I mean, I'll
talking about
talk
this
about
before
it.
you got here.
Yeah.
I don't really know too much. I mean, I know that it's. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a weird sort of concept. It just came out of nowhere, and
Right,
you know,
right.
there was this
Yeah.
question of how, you know, is this going to upset the industry? What's going to happen?
Right. Right.
I think if everything winds up going into print, I mean, I really don't see it upsetting the industry then at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's this influx of cash that, you know, it's hard for image creators and a lot of creator-owned books because, you know, a lot of people are just doing this like because they really love the books that they're making. And from a financial perspective, everyone, you know, everyone has different arrangements, but mostly you're hoping that it sells enough so that everyone on the team can get paid, you know.
Right.
But with Substack, they're essentially giving out free money to creators to create books on their platform that they own the copyright of.
Right.
You know, James Tynion IV has openly talked about how his Substack books will eventually be published by Image for like trade collections and hardcovers and stuff. And I'm sure that we'll see a lot of people on Substack doing the same thing.
I mean, from a creator point of view, you can't really lose because you're getting upfront money, and after they recoup their original investment, you're getting 90%, right?
I mean, the only real, I mean, it's not even it's not an issue. It's just that you have to budget out, you know, how much you're going to be, you know, setting aside for your own expenses for, you know, as a writer or artist or whatever, plus a colorist, plus an inker, plus whatever.
Sure.
So I mean, that's something.
Yeah. It's a good problem to have.
But I guess it's a good problem, man. Yeah, because I mean, you know, it sounds like it's a great deal of money. And and to me, you know, somebody who, I mean, I haven't been able to really, you know, pitch as many things as I want to because I got to pay for it out of my own pocket, you know. So to have that sort of at your disposal must be amazing. That you don't have to worry about, you know, how am I going to afford to pitch this? How am I going to, you know, do this? That must be great. That you're able to just make the books that you want to make.
That's the dream.
But again, you know, it's sort of you know, it's a closed off sort of group because I mean, who's really going to be getting that money? But you know, the big name creators. So somebody like me would not get an email about here's your however much money. Unless if Julio's gotten that email, but you know,
no, unfortunately not.
So given the opportunity, if they called you, it's a
I mean, it sounds like from what we know publicly, it sounds great. You know.
Yeah, and I don't know how I could really say no to that. Just the opportunity to create, you know, at your leisure.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah,
it sounds pretty good.
From a retailer point of view, when I first heard of Substack, I heard of it maybe less than 6 months ago.
Yeah.
It was such a foreign concept. I couldn't wrap my head around it. It kind of reminded me of cryptocurrency. It's like, you know, it's so foreign.
Yeah.
But when I heard like Tenian's, you know, Snyder, all these big names are latching on, or you know, they're going to publish through them. It was like, wow, this is a game changer, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. You know, we'll see how it plays out long term. You know, I think Tinian is one of the only people who's like leaving, you know, doing big 2 books to do it.
Right.
Everyone else seems to have just like added more work to their plate to do it.
Also, Tinian is exclusive Substack?
Not exclusive, but he left DC.
Right.
Like he's not doing Batman or anything over there. But he's still doing his Image books, his Boom books, and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you could reveal, but out of all the big companies, who is the easiest to work with? I mean, obviously you guys work with Image.
Yeah, I mean, I've only worked with in the direct market. I've worked with Image. I have a short story in a Marvel book coming out next month. It's called Marvel Voices Comunidades, and it's yeah, it's a really cool like anthology that they're putting out.
Right.
That is a bunch of Latino creators and Latino characters.
Nice.
So I was really privileged to be able to write a Miles Morales and Anya Corazon, who's Spider Girl.
Wow.
I wrote a story with the two of them, and that was a great experience. You know, a lot of times you hear about, and mind you, this is a 6-page story, so it's not like, you know, I'm not like changing anything about the characters, but
Right.
you hear all these stories about how these big companies don't let you really do anything with your characters, but you know, I didn't get any feedback about like what I was allowed to have them do or anything like that. It was really just like an amazing experience. So I've worked with Image, I did that story with Marvel, and I've done like a lot of book market stuff. So worked with HarperCollins on 2 graphic novels that are coming out in the future, and Penguin Random House on another one. And they're all so different. You know, direct market publishers are so different from book market publishers.
Right.
They both have their like pros and cons. You know, direct market is so much quicker to come out, but with the book market, you know, there's long lead times, but there's so much editorial support, and it feels like you really have the time to, you know, write a 250-page graphic novel, have your artist draw it, and really spend a lot of time on it. So you know, it's a give and take with all of them, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's more of a team effort with the book market?
It feels like there's definitely a lot more voices contributing to, like, you know, there's a lot more input from editorial, whereas Image, like one of the benefits of Image is, like, you know, a book like Home, I'm not sure that any other like indie direct market publisher would have let me do everything that I did with it. At Image, you know, they let me do whatever I wanted.
Right.
I didn't have anyone saying like, oh, maybe that's a little too controversial, a little too political, or anything like that. So, you know, I think that's one of the benefits too at Image, that you do whatever you want. Like with your books, you've written whatever you want also.
Yeah. The only time we get any sort of feedback from them is whether I've misspelled a word or not, you know.
Too many ellipses.
Yeah, which was a problem. That's really, you know, it's really been great with Image, and yeah.
So I have a viewer, Vorshan, said these books that he's gonna purchase will go on his bookshelf and not in the comic book.
Nice.
That's
Display them prominently.
That's nice.
It's quite a compliment.
I have another question from Darius. It says, Cello Gentleman, if you can share with us, what is the next project or aspiring project you would like to work on?
I mean, I'm right now, I'm pretty locked into the next arc of Texas Blood, and I'm working on another project that's as yet unannounced with another publisher, but you know, that's just a small thing. But it'll be fun. But I mean, I really want to. I mean, there's so much that we've sort of set up in the Texas Blood universe that there's a lot that we could do. I know that a lot of people reading the current arc want to see an Eversol spinoff, which would be really fun, and I would love to do that.
I'll just interrupt you for a second, because I literally Chris sent me like an early PDF of the first issue of this arc that just ended, and that's literally the first thing I said to him. I was like, I need an Eversol spin-off to read.
To write, really. I mean, I can't wait to hopefully get actually, you know, because I mean, I don't know what it takes to get a spin-off, but you know, if Image will let us, we'll do a spin-off. But I would love to do that. Jacob and I also had a Patreon comic that we had to stop doing just because it was a lot of work for Jake, especially. So we had to put it on hold. But I would love to finish that, hopefully in a print medium, because it was only on Patreon, and it was called Brutal Dark. It's a noir crime / a little bit of fantasy.
It was really good. I liked it a lot.
Yeah,
I was disappointed to see it not continue.
We were doing 8-page, you know, digital comics, so it was monthly, and unfortunately, it just became too much to do that Texas Blood. Plus, Jake. Now we can talk about it. Jake was also working on New Burn. Plus the other comics. Yeah. So it was a lot. So we had to cut it out.
That's a Brubaker, right?
No, that's with Chip
Zdarsky.
Zdarsky. Yeah.
Oh, Chip Zdarsky.
And New Bern's great, by the way. But yeah, it wound up being too much. But hopefully, you know, because we do these breaks in between arcs, so we're going to be taking a break now until May, probably 2022. Once the next arc finishes up, we're probably gonna, you know, we're gonna be doing something else for at least a little bit. And then when we come back with Texas Blood, it'll be a real explosive arc, which I'm very excited about. It's what we've been building towards, which is going to be fun. But that's not going to be till, I don't know, 2-3 years from now.
Would you guys be hitting the convention circuit?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would love to be hitting the convention circuit.
Yeah.
But you know, it's scary with COVID, you know, and all that. But I actually went to the UK in October.
No way.
So I went to a festival there and actually was able to meet Jake. I'd never met Jake before in person.
Not Luca. Was it LucaCon?
No, it was the Lakes International Festival.
Okay.
It's a fairly small festival, but it was really great.
Yeah.
Everybody was really nice. So like I said, I mean, I was able to hang out with Jacob and his father and also Charlie Adler. And, was able to meet Gustavo Vargas, who's a great indie creator.
Yeah.
Alex Packnadel was finally able to meet Alex, who I've known, you know, through Twitter.
Yeah.
You know, which is how I've been meeting everybody these days. But yeah, I would love to. I mean, it wasn't right in my mind to start doing all this stuff until I started feeling more comfortable, and I felt like the world was getting a little bit more right. But I guess we're probably still far away from there. But
yeah, closer though.
Yeah.
Closer.
Yep. Better be.
New York Comic Con was pretty safe though.
Yeah, I felt pretty good at New York Comic Con. Yeah.
Everybody was vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
Half capacity, right?
Yeah.
Far apart.
Yeah, it definitely felt different than
this is your
2019. I guess was the last one. Yeah.
Which was your first convention?
Yeah, it was my first convention. I at the time I was only writing like online mini comics that I was publishing, which you can still read on my website. And I did a panel there. But really the main reason I was there was to pitch home.
Right.
And that's where I met, you know, I did something that like I wouldn't recommend to other people necessarily, but
great story by the way.
Yeah, I had my pitch on my iPad and I just like went up to booths of publishers that I thought could be a good fit.
Right.
I went in knowing who those editors were, and just like looking up their photos on Google Images to like, you know, like try to like match the face to the name.
Yeah.
And I just started cold pitching home.
Wow. Nobody called security?
No. Like, someone get this guy out of here. It was awkward. It was uncomfortable, humiliating. But, you know, I got a lot of the same, like, feedback from most people, which was like, oh, it's, you know, it's too political. This sounds really cool, but we're not sure we're the right fit. Eventually, I spoke to an editor who works at an image imprint, Top Cow.
Okay.
And obviously, home is not the right fit for Top Cow.
Right.
But she was super into the idea. And she's the one who put it in front of Eric Stevenson, the publisher at Image.
Nice.
And
an angel.
Yeah, and that changed everything, you know. You know, I owe her a lot. And it also just like speaks to like having the right voices, the right like perspectives and backgrounds in like the front offices of these publishers, you know. Her name's Elena. She's I believe Mexican American, and she saw our pitch and really connected with it, you know, and put it in front of Eric and made sure that, you know, he saw it and advocated for this book, you know. So I owe her a lot. But yeah.
Do you think during the pitch was in the midst of that political climate?
Yeah.
So you think that kind of helped your book?
I don't know. I mean, like, the honest truth is that this book doesn't exist without the previous administration and everything that happened during that time. So, you know, we're talking about October 2019 when the con is happening. So, you know, this is pre-COVID. Things are still crazy every single day with that administration, and we're all exhausted by it. But, you know, I think people wanted to see stories like this that address what's happening, but also offers some hope as well.
Hmm.
So I like to think that that's maybe what she saw, and
Right.
what Eric at Image saw also.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I think thank you so much for stopping
Of course.
by.
Thank
so much
you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
And hopefully we could do it again.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd be
Thank you
happy
guys
to
for
stop
tuning
by.
in. And, Hank's got tons of books from us now.
Yeah,
So if you guys want some, you know where to go.
definitely. I mean, I really supported home.
Yeah,
Like,
huge supporter.
yeah, I'm big. I think probably the most in New York.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
I,
Yeah.
I bought a lot.
Yeah.
Because I believed in the book. Such a
Yeah.
great read.
No, I really appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Cool.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Guys. All right, we're
Bye.
gonna end the
Happy
broadcast.
Thanksgiving,
Thank you so
everybody.
much. All right. Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Darius. Oh, Terry said go to Honolulu next year. That's what she's gonna meet.
Oh, the con.
Thanks, Jose. Thanks, Ernie, for stopping by. Thanks, Darius. Thanks, Borshan. All righty.
All right. Awesome.